Hello and welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm going to talk about the last 2 months of my journey on YouTube. So I set up my channel back in May. It was towards the end of May. And since then, I have reflected back and realized it's actually been nearly 2 months. So I thought I'd take the opportunity to kind of sit back and just think about the journey so far, the things that I have learnt about creating YouTube content, my own personal kind of journey on this platform. And also I thought it would be nice to perhaps share some tips that might help other new channels or anyone out there that's thinking about creating a YouTube channel. Okay, so the main reason why I decided to set up this channel was really to help people understand the connection between our mind and our body. As a psychologist, this is an area that I'm not only passionate about, but an area I feel that people don't quite understand. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that we don't talk about it enough. We don't learn about it enough through education, through schools. And generally there's a disconnect, especially I see when they are people living with a chronic condition or a mental health condition, or even when people are trying to make changes. And these are the areas that I work in and specialize in. And some of the topics that I've talked about throughout the last few months, if you have been following my channel, you'll see that I've done a few videos on talking about change, the difficulties of change, how to manage change, and also habits and change kind of come together. So I thought that actually, I talk about these things, I educate my patients and clients on these topics. And this is why I thought, this platform would be an ideal platform to be able to share this information more wisely with people that don't always necessarily access the NHS or access private therapy, but actually are in need of this information. I also wanted to be able to provide information that's easy to understand, that can be related to people's lives and their health, so that then they'd be able to apply that information and really try to make the changes and feel the benefits of making changes. Because sometimes trying to even think about changing something can feel really overwhelming. But giving people the information, education, tools and techniques that are out there that people might not always know about. For me personally, that's that's a really good way of perhaps making a difference to people's health and their lives as well. What about myself in terms of this journey? So I'll be honest, I have spent a lot of time studying psychology, health psychology, doing a PhD in the subject. And I think at the time when I was studying, I never thought that I would be here today doing a YouTube video like this or having a YouTube channel. I think things have really changed since I qualified over 10 years ago. And I felt that actually this landscape that we're in at the moment with education and social media, I either don't do it or I get on it and give it a go. And I always feel like, and this is something I always say to people, is we have choices to some extent, and the choices are either we do something or we don't do something. Try to keep it as simple as that. And so I decided to do it and to give it a try. And like with anything, and as you'll see in my video here about planning and organising, that it's not as simple. Certainly I didn't feel like I could just start this channel. I am the type of person that likes to prepare, that likes to have a little bit of a timeline to when I'm going to do something like this. Even planning my videos, I like to have some kind of schedule, and it helps me to prepare, to get ready, to know that I've got everything that I need. And then I feel much more confident, and I feel as though I'm ready to actually do what it is I need to do. So there was a lot of prep work that I had to do in terms of equipment, lighting, camera, you know, all those things that I learned from other YouTubers. And I felt like, okay, so once I had the resources, I then had to now start to feel as though I can talk to the camera again, something that I had experience of previously, but I suppose not so much in terms of it being a huge part of my working week, which it is now. So for me personally, I think I had to really learn to feel the discomfort, and I actually recently done a blog on this. If you're interested in the blog about discomfort, please click on the link below that's in the descriptions. But actually, yeah, it was quite relevant to my own journey in terms of managing discomfort and coming out my comfort zone. Kind of being vulnerable was a huge part of this journey, and it has been for the last couple of months. And for me, it's still something that's work in progress, and probably will be, as I'm sure it is for many YouTubers out there. The other thing I realised is that there are days where I really don't feel like doing this. I really don't feel like being in front of a camera. I don't feel like preparing for my scripts. And by the way, I do not use a teleprompter. I did try this, but it just didn't work for me. I couldn't keep up with the speed of the prompter even when I slowed it down. So actually what I now do is just talk to the camera. I make some notes. I think about the things I want to share, the way I want to structure my videos, from like say the beginning, the middle and the end with some take homes. And actually I just try to make it flow the best I can. So there's another tip there. Don't feel like you need to use a teleprompter. Okay, so kind of back to what I was saying around not feeling like I want to make a video. I'll be honest, there are days where I do feel this way, but then I have to think about actually practice what you preach. What do I tell my patients? I say to them, you're not always going to feel like something, or you're not always going to feel like doing what it is you know you need to do, or doing what you know is good for you. Okay, so there's always an emotion attached to that feeling. But what I know from my field and the research that's out there is that if we follow that feeling, so if I followed that feeling of, I don't feel like doing a video today because I'm tired or I have so many other things to do, I won't do it. So what I have to train myself and what I teach my patients is go with the behavior, go with the action. Don't wait for the feeling, or don't wait for the feeling that I'll do this when I feel like doing it, because you'll never do it. Waiting for that feeling is like waiting for the perfect moment to come. And actually, we all know it doesn't quite work like that. So I guess tip number one to myself and to anyone out there is don't wait for the feeling, just do it. And just go with the action. And then what happens is the magic. The feeling starts to come, and that feeling is around, excitement or feeling good that actually I did this. And certainly, I suppose maybe today for me was one of those days where I was like, I don't feel like it today. But I'm hoping by the end of this video that I will feel good for actually making this video, because it's timely and I'm reaching that 2-month mark this week. So I'm like, no, this has to be done. So The other thing I guess I've learnt about myself is looking at the analytics is important. We all know that. If you're on this platform and as a content creator, it's important to see which videos are doing well, at what time, and all those things, all those sort of things that actually I probably didn't really give that much thought to when I first started out, but I knew it was important. But what I have learned is if I'm obsessing over the analytics, then it's actually not helpful. It can make me feel like, oh, is this actually working? Or why are people not watching my videos? You know, all these questions that fly about. So what I've learned to do now is check the analytics, but maybe check them not every single day, but making sure I'm checking in on them at least 4 times a week. So those are my sort of own personal reflections over the last 2 months. Okay, so next I'm going to talk about what has been helpful over the last 2 months. And I think the first thing I would say is a big high five to all those YouTubers out there, the small channels that I have watched, and watched in terms of gaining some advice, some tips on actually, all the little things that I probably didn't think about doing. Like, uploading the videos onto the platform ahead of the schedule. So maybe 24 to 48 hours before, and letting them kind of settle into the YouTubes and the algorithms and all of those things. Again, new things that I've picked up. Making sure I take time over my descriptions and hashtags and tags and making sure the file name links in with the file name that's actually on the, representing the actual video, Again, a big thanks to channels like Dan the Creator. Small channels like that have been really helpful. Again, big channels, I'm a huge fan of Ali Abdal, and I guess he has been one of my inspos for creating this channel in the first place. Really inspiring and motivating, but really realistic and grounding. So I think, looking at the big channels versus small channels has been really helpful for me. I'm going to leave a link down below to some of the others that have been helpful. Again, for anyone out there that's looking to get some inspiration and information. The other thing I've found useful is feedback. Now, I probably haven't had as much feedback per video, but the feedback that has come through has been really helpful. And it's helped me to create some content that actually I hadn't planned to create, especially those related to being a health psychologist, my career into health psychology, private practice. Please keep that feedback coming because, at the end of the day, this platform is for you. It's to help and educate people, not only along their health journeys, but if I can help in terms of career and journeys there, then absolutely happy to do that as well. I've loved the questions. So I've had questions like, why do I wear the same colour for most of my videos? You'll notice that I tend to wear black t-shirts, black tops for most of my videos. And again, this was a tip that I had picked up, which I thought was brilliant, because sometimes we have those days where we're not feeling as decisive about hair, about outfits. So for me, wearing this black top is not a uniform. That was something that somebody had asked me in passing. It's something I've decided to wear because one of the reasons is it's easy. It really is. I don't need to think about it so much. Therefore, I can think about other things that are more important, and other things that I probably need to spend more time thinking about and not necessarily what I'm wearing. So if you're curious about that, I'm hoping that that's answered your question there as well. What else has been helpful? Emails, people emailing in and again, leaving feedback, leaving comments, even on social media. The DMs are really helpful. And I think what I've also found helpful is perhaps sharing this channel across other platforms. I mean, yeah, again, there are times I'm like, this is not something I want to do today, but I just carry on doing it. Action, action all the time. And once it's done, it's great to see the feedback. I think as a new YouTube content creator, the number one thing that's really nice to have is some feedback, whether that's, helpful feedback or feedback on areas of improvements. When you're working solo, I think that's so precious and so valuable. So to kind of finish on this video about the last 2 months of my journey on YouTube, I'm going to kind of finish off with my kind of top tips, not only tips that are more reflective of the journey that I've been on so far, but these are tips for anyone that's contemplating a channel, and hopefully you'll find those useful. So tip number 1 is consistency. Now, if you've watched my other videos, you will kind of know by now that I have talked a bit about consistency and how important that is. And I practice what I preach as much as I can. And I find that being consistent is really helpful for productivity. For me to get things done, for me to create these videos, because this is not the only thing I do in terms of work, I have to be consistent. I have to set a time, a day, and I just have to roll with it. So tip number 1, be consistent in anything that you do, whether it's this channel, whether it's a health goal, whether it's something else you're working towards. Just show up, even if it's for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and just see the difference that it makes. Okay, so tip number 2 is be flexible. Now, consistency is great, but life happens, things happen. For me, over the last 9 months, in my personal life, I've had 4 bereavements. And those bereavements have been close friends and a family member. So it's been a tough old 9 months. And each time I have had to have a break from the camera, from work, even if it's a few days, just to settle those emotions and really kind of recharge so that I can show up again. So being flexible for me there is no choice in that matter. I have to know that that is on my agenda and I can be flexible. Tip number 3, I would say, is if you are going to create content, then when you're having those good days and those sort of not so busy periods, film. Create a bit of a batch, and therefore when life happens and you don't have time, you have a bit of a sort of backlog to fall back on the week where you know that actually you're really strapped for time. And I personally feel, for me, that can be really, really useful at those sort of really moments where you haven't got the energy emotionally, when there are those life events that I've just talked about happen. That there is going to be, a couple of videos that you can then plug in, and that will kind of keep you going as well. Tip number 4 would be to, again, if you've seen that video, I refer to that video again about planning and time management, is to, again, have a schedule a month in advance, I would say. Too far ahead, and then it can, not always go to plan. So really try to plan as much as possible, and especially if you're like me and have kids and a family, then it's, again, putting in all those sort of school things and then those school commitments and sporting events and all those other things, school holidays coming up for many of us. So all those things, try to plan those ahead so that you know where you are, and therefore you'll be able to know when you can shoot in the school holidays and when you can't as well. And the last point I will end on, tip number 5, is self-care. I am a huge fan of self-care. For me, self-care, again, is like flexibility. I need to prioritize self-care, and, you know, it's something that I don't like to compromise on. And it doesn't mean that I take a full day off and chill out. It just means that I have 10 minutes for myself to prepare something nice to eat, or go for a walk, or put on a face mask, or just, you know, listen to some nice music, listen to a podcast. You know, I give myself 10 minutes, but if I give myself half an hour, great. I try not to set the bar too high, because then I'm like, I haven't got the time. Again, it's something I know a lot of us, especially, let's say, working parents, working moms, it's, you know, it's really hard to find that time. It's not an excuse, it's just the reality, really. So self-care doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to take up so much time or resources. It's what's within your reach. What do you already have that you can just connect with? The A is going to give you that sense of achievement, a sense of purpose, but most of all, it's going to leave you feeling good at the end of it as well. So there you have my personal journey, what I found helpful, and my top 5 tips in terms of looking after yourself and staying productive, staying healthy, staying motivated, and growing the channel. I think whilst shooting this video, I think today is, you know, it's the marker is around 92, 93 subscribers. So for me, I'm, you know, that's been great to see the growth in terms of subscribers and viewers. And I really hope that continues to go on that upward trajectory. And I would like to also thank you for my subscribers and followers, and, you know, for really kind of encouraging me at those times. You know who you are. And helping me to kind of stay on track and keep on doing these videos. So again, if you'd like to leave me any feedback or comments, please do so in the comments below, and don't forget to like or subscribe my video, and also check out my website. And if there's anything in terms of psychological therapy and tools that you would like to learn about, please do get in touch. I hope you have a lovely day, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.